What's going on, you guys? I know it's been a little while since I posted on YouTube, but I wanted to get on here and talk about the draft landscape, kind of where we are at this point of the season. Obviously, I've kind of made a few tweaks to my board if you follow me on social media. Obviously, this college season has been awesome. The freshman class has been ridiculous. I made a few tweaks to my recent board, but now that I've been kind of watching and kind of reading into some stuff, I did make a couple more tweaks that I wanted to go over, but and kind of talk about my first three tiers of my board and kind of where I'm standing with these prospects. And obviously, if you guys have not tuned into any of my videos, I know it's been a little while, but my name's Ian Kennedy. I'm a former college player, still potentially looking to play another year, but also looking to try to play pro. But I love to talk sports. I love to talk the NBA draft, the NFL draft, so I'm going to get right into it. Starting with my franchise changers, this is kind of where I made like the major tweak of but placing Devonta a tier below these guys in Cameron Boozer and Darren Peterson. And I kind of want to just go over like what they really do well, kind of the discourse that's surrounding them in draft media, especially with a guy like Cameron Boozer. So I'm going to start with because I do slightly lean him over Peterson, simply due to the all-around impact. And it's honestly ridiculous what his advanced metrics look like. If you look them up on Bartorvik.com, which is free, a lot of the advanced metrics are on there, and it's ridiculous when you look at it. But I think a lot of the stuff, especially on like Twitter, which is obviously an interesting spot to talk about the NBA draft and particular prospects, but Boozer is not the flashiest player. I feel like guys kind of lean towards the aesthetics in terms of not necessarily flash, but expert shot making and being able to hit step back threes and doing a bunch of this other stuff instead of like kind of the fundamental stuff, which it's awesome when NBA players are able to do that. And a lot of people make a living off of it. Look at Kyrie Irving, and obviously he's a Hall of Fame player. But nonetheless, Boozer is an outstanding prospect who's just so fundamentally sound in so many areas to the point where I don't think it's going to matter that he's not some crazy vertical athlete. He doesn't have some expert handle. It's not going to matter for him in the long run just because he's so strong. He has an excellent blend of feel, strength, a face-up game, processing, and he has the ability to step out and knock down the three ball at a consistent clip, which, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the numbers on me right now, but I think he's taken 6.5 to 7.5 three-pointers, like three-pointers attempted per 100 possessions, which is a really good number, but he's also shooting around 38%, I want to say, from three, which is really efficient for a guy who's at 6'9" or 6'10", I want to say, and about 250 pounds. Like he has that NBA frame, almost similar to his dad, Carlos Boozer, of course. Guys like Julius Randle, Karl Anthony Towns. He's just a strongly built young player who's really going to translate to the NBA just fine. Which a lot of the translation questions are where people have concerns for him, which is interesting to me because I think a lot of it is, like I mentioned, the aesthetics, kind of just the ability not to raise above the rim consistently and put guys on posters, but who really needs that? When you look at guys like Nikola Jokic, Alperen Şengün, they rely on their footwork, they rely on their skill, their feel, processing, all that, and they are excellent players. I don't think Boozer's going to have, or honestly, I never know. You never know. But I don't think Boozer's going to be some Nikola Jokic type of player from day one. But I do think he could have that similar type of impact offensively to an extent with his ability to kind of play out of a pick and roll, play out of the elbow as a playmaking hub, his ability to read the defenses out of when he's getting double teamed in the post, his strength, his touch on the block. He just does an excellent job. He has multiple ways that he can score around the rim, whether that's pump faking 80 times and getting a guy in the air, then getting to the line for the M1, which obviously he does an excellent job of converting his and-ones at the free throw line. He can push it in the break a little bit. He's not some super fast guy for his size, obviously, it's rare unless you're a guy like LeBron and Zion, these guys that can really move like crazy. But Boozer, it's just a lot of it, like I mentioned, the fundamentals are just so sound and precise to the point where it's really not going to matter in the league, especially considering the type of impact that he's already had on Duke, and really his advanced metrics back up the tape. So I'm really excited to see where he lands in the draft. If I had to go with a comp for him, I thought Minnesota Kevin Love was kind of a decent one, just considering at least before like the 3-point volume increase when Love was playing with guys like LeBron and Irving in Cleveland. So that was a little bit of a different situation. But back to the basket guys, excellent rebounders who are super strong, can step out, knock down the three, can really pass, and really just make an impact on the offensive end. Defensively is where I could see some concern. He's not the quickest guy, but he does an excellent job of keeping his head on a swivel. I think he's fairly aware and does an excellent job with his team positioning and being able to step over and make a play on the ball. And he's got really quick hands as well. So I think he's going to be fine on the defensive end. Once he's paired up with a much more athletic player in the league, I do think that will definitely help him in the long run. Moving on to Darren Peterson, who is, I guess, technically my second-ranked prospect in the class, but really my 1B if you want to go very technical. But nonetheless, he is a ridiculous shot-making prospect, probably the best one in this type of category since Luka. He's so good off the ball and coming off screens, being prepared and ready on the catch to shoot it. Obviously, his release is picture perfect, great mechanics, does an excellent job of elevating, but nonetheless, he's a ridiculous scorer. He's not a crazy athlete, but everything that he does looks effortless. He's very elusive, has a very fluid handle, and I think he does an excellent job of using these subtle shoulder bumps like guys that you see with Devin Booker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a lot of these guys that love to use their body to create just enough separation to get their shot off. And it works really well for Peterson just because he can elevate, but also consistently shoot it. So he's super encouraging, or very excellent in this category as a shot maker. And when you look at the NBA today, like guys like Luka, SGA, of course, is kind of the main comp that I see for Peterson, and I do agree. But when you look at the offenses now, especially OKC, they're heliocentric. It's all surrounding Shai. They are heavily relying on him to generate offense for others, but also for himself. And he's doing it at a historic clip and rate, efficiency-wise. And it's honestly ridiculous that people think he's overrated, which is just absolutely outrageous. He's such a special talent. And I do think Peterson, I don't know if he'll ever get to this level, but I think he's on that same path. And I think he's definitely much better as a prospect coming out because obviously SGA was kind of not out of nowhere, but we weren't expecting him to be this good, honestly, because he's turning into a first ballot Hall of Famer. But Peterson definitely has, he could fill out the same blueprint as SGA, as this heliocentric, kind of like the nucleus of an offense, and where he's generating about 50% of the points created each game. Like whether it's operating out of the pick and roll, coming off screens, off of handoffs, whatever it is, Peterson he's that versatile as a scorer, but he's also a very solid and sound passer. He's not a special one, but by any means, he is a good enough one that has great touch on lobs, can make a pass off a live dribble, and that's pretty much what you want to see in the NBA. And of course, it takes some time to kind of adjust to the game speed, and Peterson will probably have to adjust to that as well. But nonetheless, I think at some point he's going to be a good playmaker, and he's already a good passer. So I'm really excited to see where he lands. Comparison-wise, I already did kind of mention SGA, but people do see some shades of Kobe Bryant, which honestly I do see it as well. The shot making in the mid-range, the footwork, the pure shooting form, but also maybe not as good as Bryant will be defensively, but Peterson can definitely make an impact on the defensive end, whether that's just playing in passing lanes, getting deflections, chase down blocks, because he can really jump and he's got good length at the guard position. So I'm excited to see where he lands. These two are clearly the best two prospects. I feel like they just have an extra it factor that Debonsa just doesn't really show enough for me right now. But speaking of him, we're going to get right into him right now. Debonsa and Kingston Flemings actually round out my tier 2. So there's only 2 guys in my tier 1, and there's 2 guys in my tier 2 right now. So obviously A.J. Debonsa at BYU is a special type of athlete, a ridiculous guy with tools. excellent shot maker in the mid-range. He loves getting to that little mid-range post-up and really raising up over defenders that just they can't contest it just because he has such long arms, but he also elevates effortlessly. Devonta is one that he has all the tools to become a two-way monster. I just don't see the commitment on the defensive end consistently enough. And it's starting to show up, especially when they're playing much better comp. His numbers have kind of dropped, not super dramatically, but it's to the point where it's noticeable. I think it's like a minus 7.8% true shooting against top 50 comp right now. So that's not ideal for someone who heavily relies on a lot of mid-range post touches and especially getting to the rim. But nonetheless, I want to talk about the positives with him because he really is a special prospect regardless, and he does have an argument for being in the tier 1. So I honestly could see at least the argument for him being in the top 3. But getting into his positives, he has ridiculous burst and fluidity at 6'9". He probably has a 6'11" to 7 foot plus wingspan just by looking at him when he's playing. Obviously, I mentioned the shot making. He loves getting to the mid range and doing so, but he also finishes at the rim really well, and he gets to the free throw line at a really high rate. So he's done an excellent job of, I don't want to call it foul baiting, especially when he's putting guys out of position, especially with like the shot fakes. If you jump, I don't see the point, or I don't. You should be trying to lean in and draw a foul, especially if you're getting a player out of position, which Devonta has really, I don't want to say mastered, but he's done an excellent job of this season. So that's really encouraging to see with a guy like AJ. Obviously, another slight concern with AJ is the three-point volume. He just doesn't shoot a lot of threes. And a lot of his catch-and-shoot opportunities, he's really elevating, which could take a lot of energy out of his legs. But nonetheless, I do think he at some point will be, or he's going to have to take a lot more threes, especially in the NBA, where it's so heavily relied on at this point too. But I do think at some point he's got to get to that a lot more. So that would be encouraging, especially in conference play. But moving on to Kingston Flemings of Houston, and he's probably the biggest riser of the entire class, and it's for good reason. He is a two-way kind of off guard or combo guard, I guess you want to say, but he is explosive. He's an effortless mover, and the two-way potential is real. He has a real knack of getting to his spots, creating turnovers. He's had like 2 games this season with like 7+ steals, which obviously is ridiculous at any level, but really wanted to harp on his ability to get to his spots. I think he does a really good job of doing so. He has a nice fluid handle, but when he gets a running start downhill, I don't want to say unstoppable, but he's pretty close to it because he can just stop on a dime out of nowhere and raise up. He's got a beautiful jumper. It kind of reminds me at least, of VJ Edgecombe's jumper, kind of the high and compact right-handed shot, but it's super clean. He can get all the way to the rim off of screens in transition. He makes the extra pass off a live dribble, and he's really been tasked with a lot of on-ball responsibility for Kelvin Sampson this year. And playing alongside a guy like Milos Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp has only helped his development, and I'm really excited to see how he does in the tournament when the lights are the brightest. I think he's just done an excellent job, and he's almost been, I don't want to say a true surprise, but like he was the 4-star recruit, which that's nothing bad at all. But they had 2 5-star recruits, Isaiah Harwell and Chris Sinak, who's really starting to come on recently. But Flemings was the 4-star, so a lot of people were expecting him to be a 1 to 3 year player, maybe even 4. But he's shown up this year and has turned into a legitimate All-American level player in his first season as a Houston Cougar. So it's pretty special to see. I think he's just been clearly their best player, whether it's shot making. I think the 3-point volume off the dribble can probably increase, but he's been efficient in all areas. We just got to see that continue to be sustained throughout the tournament, and of course in his rookie season, which is going to be tough. But regardless, super explosive mover. He has the potential to be a really good two-way player. I think he can get a little bit over aggressive defensively, but he's super athletic, really solid passer. He's just a really very solid, sound player who's also has the icing on the cake of being super explosive and an excellent athlete out in open space. So he has a real shot to be a star in the NBA. I'm excited to see how he develops for the rest of the season. But yeah, those two guys, they round out my second tier, I guess, of all-star bets, if you want to call it. Then I'm going to move on into my tier 3 here. Three, I do have Jaden Quaintance and Caleb Wilson right now. These will kind of be the last two guys I talk about. But Quaintance is kind of he's a wild card. So he obviously was at Arizona State his freshman year. He reclassed. He played there last year for the Sun Devils at age 17, which is crazy. And he played in 24 games before he tore his ACL, unfortunately. But he had a 9.4 block percentage at 17 years old, and he was just only 6'9". So that kind of tells you what type of defensive prospect he is already. He is a special player on this end. He's kind of like, I wrote an article about him for Draft Stack, and he's kind of a defensive chess piece that you can kind of deploy out there in multiple ways, mainly as a drop defender, but also a guy that can hard hedge, switch out onto guards, and be able to contain the drive. But also, if he does get blown by, he can recover because he has a freakishly long wingspan, reportedly 7'3" to 7'5", I want to say. So that's obviously special for a guy who's 6'9", 6'10". So that's like a +6, I want to say. I may have just did that math wrong, but regardless, he is a special defensive prospect. He hasn't really played a lot for Kentucky this year. We saw him in, I want to say, 2 games, and his first one is against St. John's, which was actually impressive because we saw some improvement with his shooting mechanics, but also some encouraging flashes as a driver. He had a nice between the legs crossover against Zuby, against the St. John's big. I forgot to pronounce his last name. Apologies for that. But he did an excellent job of getting downhill, using his body to create some space, and then finishing with a little floater over the top. So he's impressive as a prospect. I don't think people realize how good of a defensive prospect he is, which is why he's so much higher on my board. But also, I think he does have an argument if he continues to, or if he gets back and starts to show off what he can really do. I think he does have an argument to move into my tier 2. And I don't think he'll be tier 1 at any point, but Quaintance really does have all the tools to be an all-NBA level defender, but also a guy that has some flashes offensively with his athleticism. As a lob threat, he runs in transition. At least the increase in three-point volume, at least his freshman year, he took like 32, I want to say. So I think that was obviously encouraging. At least he's taking them. But he's one heck of a defensive prospect who will firmly be in lottery consideration for the foreseeable future. And then Caleb Wilson from UNC. Obviously, he's one that a lot of people like, and I've seen some that have put him in tier 1 and above Cam Boozer, which I think is a little bit far-fetched, but obviously we'll see how it pans out. But he's another one that has crazy traits at 6'10", super long arms, excellent, ridiculous athlete out in space, and can put you on a poster at just about any time. He usually takes 1 or 2 dribbles from half court, and he's already at the rim. So obviously he's an excellent above-the-rim athlete. I do love the intent that he has of kind of scoring in the mid-range out of the mid-post and raising up over guys that are smaller than him. One thing that I did notice, I don't know the numbers on it now, but at least a few weeks ago, he is shooting like 42% on rim attempts outside of dunks, which is not ideal for somebody of his athleticism and kind of his kind of the draft buzz surrounding him. You would think that it would be much higher, but a lot of his attempts at the rim are dunks, which is obviously very valuable in the NBA. So obviously it's encouraging to see him work as a lob threat, work kind of in the mid post as kind of a dive-in guy in the short corner, and of course another guy that's really good in transition, even with the ball in his hands. There was a couple highlight-worthy plays that he's made throughout this season that you don't see out of a lot of the draft prospects and ever. So he's super encouraging on the defensive end, though. I think his positioning and awareness can get a little bit better, but regardless, he's a guy that can contest you at the rim, can guard you out in space at 6'10" and make and switch out onto the wing, do whatever you need to do. He's one that you can deploy out there in multiple ways. It kind of reminds me of Jaden McDaniels in a sense of a wing defender that can stop your best scorer, but also be able to contest the bigs at the rim and contain quicker guards out on the perimeter. So he's one that's very high upside with two-way impact and has a real pathway to being an all league level defender at some point in his career. I wouldn't say he's too far behind in terms of his offensive blueprint, but I do think he has some work to do there. So nonetheless, I'm excited about all these guys. There was a few other guys that I wanted to mention that I do like, guys like LeBaron Philon, who kind of projects as a secondary creator who can shoot the ball, get downhill, make a play defensively. Hans Steinbach from Washington is a sort of a traditional modern-ish big tweener, whatever you want to call him. But he can really pass it. He's a good back-to-the-basket scorer. He's got good touch. He's got great hands. Somebody compared him to a tight end, which is a pretty niche analogy, but regardless, I do agree with that. And there's a few other guys, Bennett Sturts. If you guys know me, I love Bennett Sturts, even though with the screen reliance but his shot making, he's got excellent feel, processing on both ends of the floor. So I'm really excited to see how this draft class rounds out, especially once we get closer and once we see a lot more of the guys perform in March. Obviously, a lot of people tend to form their opinion simply based off March Madness, which you can go that way if you want to, but I would prefer to watch a lot more tape throughout the whole entire season and look at a lot of the advanced metrics to kind of pair with that tape. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been a little while, so it was kind of rough trying to get this out here, but I was supposed to have a slideshow for each guy just to specifically go over particular things. I'm sure I forgot a few others, but regardless, hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to try to get a few more videos out in regards to the draft content. Also got a few more articles coming out that I'll be posting soon. So appreciate you guys watching. God bless.